By the fall of 1865, the rolling hills of northwest Pennsylvania were covered in oil. At the base of the foothills on the narrow stretch of water was green with oil runoff from all the oil wells. As the leaves turned red, yellow, and orange, the teamsters hauling oil to Miller Farm and back with their 2-horse carts raised their rates to $3 a barrel, which was unheard of at that time. But nobody told them no, for the place was booming, and the hardy teamsters just coming back from the rebellion were earning their handsome reward. But little did they know that in just 1 year, a pipeline laid from the creek to the river would put most of the teamsters out of work. And smoking was prohibited due to the combustible state of the oil, but the rowdy teamsters lit their pipes and stogies in defiance, for they had survived the war, and nothing was going to stop them. And General Avery, one of the cavalry brigade, hired 50 axemen to cut a road through the forest, and David Kirk hired a crew of men to chop a road to the river so that the teamsters could move the oil. Baum's Dry Goods, they followed the cut roads and they moved their operation from Plummer to Pithole. And the owner, Benjamin Baum, was already successful with oil wells in Titusville and on Cherry Run. And he and his brother had made a fortune with their oil barrel making business. Of course, it was on the run that was once a favorite resort of the corn planter tribe, and it was known as Yellow Water from the large clay deposits in the creek bed. So by the time the Baums moved to Pithole, they were operating Carbon Oil Company, and after their time in Pithole, they were well on their way to living an opulent lifestyle. When driller Tom Brown arrived, he revealed his mysterious witch hazel rod, and it let him pick the precise spot where drilling would begin. Now he chose the northeast corner of lease number 4, which was just a few rods from the creek, and he used a spring pole to put the well down and later bought a small steam engine to pump the well. By Christmas, the Fraser well was picking up steam, and oil began to flow at 250 barrels a day. The very next day, the United States Petroleum Office over in Plummer reported that their stock had jumped from $6.25 to $40 on the New York Exchange. And 2 weeks later, the Kilgore well came in, and now oil was flowing everywhere, and it was selling for $8 a barrel. By spring, the U.S. Petroleum Company had netted $250,000 and 1/4 of all oil produced on all the oil leases at the creek. Now, it was sort of like crypto. It was the Wild West of making money, and everyone was rolling in it, including the tavern girls. Of course, they were advertised as waiter girls in the regional newspapers. I'm not sure of their true profession, but a Mr. Hogue of Venango County proposed legislation against them, and he had a bill that made it unlawful for any female in Venango County to wait upon an audience of men or spectators for entertainment at saloons or opera houses or any other dancing establishment. And the bill also prohibited any proprietors or owners to employ the females to wait on them. Now, the fine for breaking the law was $500 or imprisonment not to exceed 1 year. And that didn't seem to stop anyone, as one night at Murphy's Theater, Miss Eloise Bridges, she was responding to repeated curtain calls when she was showered with $500 and it was tossed to the stage by the cheering patrons. Okay, now the boomtown was about 50 miles south of Erie, about 100 miles north of Pittsburgh, and men and women were arriving daily by train, mostly from New York. But no sooner had they arrived than the oil began to dry up. For in just 1 year, the oil was gone. So Benjamin Baum moved his family back to New York, and he purchased the Cynthia Oil Works, and he began producing lubricating oil under the name of B.W. Baum and Sons. He invested heavily in the Bradford oil fields and invested in a pipeline at Bradford to ship oil from Pennsylvania to Rochester, New York. But he could not complete it because our boy Rockefeller put a stop to it. Now, with the money that he left his sons, they created Baum's Castorine Company. It was for machinery. Frank was the salesman for the company. He traveled all parts of the Northwest Pennsylvania with his tin can, peddling his oil. Frank was a bit of an artist. He spent most of his carefree young life writing for newspapers, and he had hoped to write a book. Now, after all, his father owned 2 oil companies and a barrel business when he was young, so he didn't need to work or develop any skills. But these days, he could be found canvassing the oil regions, for the family was just about broke. His father's bookkeeper for the Castorine Company gambled away all the profits. So his trips to the oil regions were now a necessity. It was on one of those trips that he got the idea of a Tin Woodman character for one of his books. His character would constantly need oil. Of course, since he was a Pennsylvania woodsman, he carried an axe. Now, Frank later sold his father's oil company, couldn't make it work, and I believe he sold it in 1888. And he returned to writing. He focused on children's books. And one of his first novels was The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and it sold 25,000 copies in 1 month, with his beloved Tin Man as one of his main characters.